The Prince and the Pauper, by Mark Twain. Chapter V. Tom meets the king. Soon Tom found himself in a big apartment at the palace and the door closed behind him. Around him stood those who had come with him. Before him there was a sofa. A large and very fat man lay on it. The expression of his wide face was stern. His large head was very gray. One of his legs had a pillow under it. It was clear he was very ill. This invalid was Henry VIII, King of England. There was silence in the apartment. Then the man said, "How are you now? My Lord Edward, my prince? How are you, my dear son? Why are you making sad the king, your father, who loves you so much? I knew you were not well. Do you feel better now? Tell me you are better." When Tom heard the words, "the king, your father," he fell upon his knees and covered his face with his hands. "Are you the king? Then I am lost. I thought the news was false. Now I see it was not," said the man. "Come up to your father, child. You are not well. I can see it now." The servant helped Tom to get up to his feet and he came up to the king. The king took the frightened face of Tom between his hands and looked into his eyes. Then he said, "Do you know your father, child? Do not break my old heart. You know me, don't you?" "Yes, I know you, your majesty." "You are the King of England," said Tom. "True, true, that as well." "My dear son," said the king, "be at peace. Don't be afraid of me. Don't be afraid of anybody. Everybody loves you. You are better now. You are not ill any longer, are you? Oh, my lord. Please believe me. I'm not a prince, I am really a pauper. I was born a pauper, and I am here only by mistake. But I am too young to die for that. Don't let me die, please. Save me, sir." "Die? Why are you speaking of death, child? Be at peace, you shall not die." Again Tom fell down upon his knees before the king. "Oh, thank you, your majesty," he said. Then Tom stood up and turned to the lords his happy face. "Have you heard it? I shall not die, the king has said it." There was silence. Everybody bowed, but nobody said a word. Tom turned to the king and said, "May I go now?" "Oh, yes," said the king. "You may go if you wish. But where do you want to go?" "I want to go home, your majesty," Tom answered. "I want to go back to Awful Court. I was born there. My mother and my sisters live there. Please, sir, may I go there?" Again there was silence for a moment. The king's face was sad. Then he said with some hope in his voice, "Perhaps he is mad upon this matter only. Let's make trial, then we shall see." The king asked Tom a question in Latin. And Tom answered him in the same language. The king was very much pleased and continued to examine Tom. He asked him a question in French. Tom stood silent for a moment, then said, "I'm sorry, sir. But I don't understand this language." The king fell back upon his sofa. He was sad and worried. "It's nothing, child," he said. "Come here and put your poor head upon your father's heart. Be at peace. You will soon be well. I tell you, you will be well again." Then the king turned to his lords. "Listen, all of you. My son is mad, That is true, but it will not be for long. He has studied too much, that is why he became mad. So, no books and no teachers for him now. Let him rest. Let him go in for sports. Let him have a good time. He raised himself a little higher and continued, "Those who will talk about his illness are the enemies of England, they will die. Remember it, mad or no mad. He is the Prince of Wales and soon he will be the King of England." Then the king turned to Tom and said, "Kiss me, my dear son, and don't be afraid of anything. I am your loving father and I want you to be happy." The old man was tired. "Dear son," he said, "go with your uncle, Lord Hertford, to your apartment. Let him come back to me later. I want to talk to him. Now I want to rest a little."